In this video, we're going to look at question number 9. What are the possible numeric measures to measure the relationship between two variables? So I want to point out that there's a connection between 5, 6, and the 9. So all three questions, 5, 6, and 9, we are looking for the relationships. So finding relationship is very important in the business world. So for instance, when you're increasing the, the discount for the product, you want to understand, will that increasing amount discount going to affecting the sales? So basically, you look at the relationship, the discount amount, and the amount of the sales. So you can definitely find many other examples, even in your daily work, and you can find most of the time you are trying to figure out the relationships. And so in this class, we will learn 3 different methods: tabular, graphical, and numeric measures. So tabular, we learned cross tabulation. Graphical, we learned scatter plot. In chapter 3, part B, we learned the numeric measures. We're using the statistic numbers to measure relationship. So the advantage of using the numeric measure is because it can more accurately to measure relationship. It is not just about a shape. It's not just about a frequency. It actually is about a very accurate number to measure the relationships. So if you don't remember the detail about two methods, make sure you're going to review chapter 3 part B, the slides and the lectures and the computer skill videos to get familiar with those concepts. Here I point out the answer for 9 are 2: covariance and correlation coefficient. In chapter 3 part B, I emphasize that we prefer to use correlation coefficient. We prefer to use correlation coefficient. Why? The reason is because covariance can only tell us the direction of the relationship, either positive, negative, or apparently no relationship. However, for correlation coefficient, it's not only about the direction of the relationship, but also it can tell us the strength. So if you forget how that works, again, please revisit chapter 3 part B. It's very important that you know how to interpret your results. As I emphasized in the previous review video, that all the chart and table and the statistic number you got from Excel, I also require you to interpret it. And so it's very important. So let's look at the same data set. So obviously we can find a relationship between win and the batting average, or win and earning round average. And so here in this video, I will show you one paired relationship. You definitely can practice on other relationships. I will try to practicing on the relationship between win and batting average. Win and batting average. So first, I will use covariance, and the second, I will use the correlation coefficient. But I want to emphasize that if in the exam you need to use correlation coefficient, please don't use covariance. Okay. So covariance, the formula we are using is CO. You basically just spell the covariance. We're always using the population, so with .p. Sample. We always treating our data as a sample data, so we are using S, stands for sample, and the parentheses. So now we're gonna select my two variables. Keep in mind, when you're using the formula here, you don't include a label. So if you're using the data analysis on the data tab, we usually include a label. And also when we use a pivot table, we include a label. If you're using the formula inside Excel spreadsheet, and we are not include a label. So therefore, we're looking for the relationship between win and the batting average. So my first array will be win. So I will select from B2 to B31. And if I select, so I finish my first entry and put a comma. So now we look at the second variable, which is batting average. So we'll be D2 to D31. And after you select D2 to D31, close the parentheses, push enter. So this is the covariance. Very, very, very small, okay? And so when you got the covariance, you only can showing the relationship. Positive, negative, or apparently no relationship. Since this variable is, this value is very close to 0, based on covariance, is the relationship between win and batting average is apparently no relationship. So now we're going to use the better method. This is the method I want you to use in the exam. It's called the correlation coefficient. So the formula is called CORREL, and the parentheses. And so the first entry, again, we are including B column, but not including label, comma, and the similar as covariance, and I'm going to select my D column. So now you can push enter. So we got 0.45957657. So you can see under the covariance, we are almost likely see that there was no relationship. But now when we move on to the correlation coefficient, we got 0.45. And we know this is a positive value, so that's positive relationship. So the same answer we got for the covariance. But the relationship actually is weak, but it's not apparently no relationship. So that's why I emphasize we prefer to use a correlation coefficient instead of covariance. So if you go back to look at the scatter plot we created for answer 6, so you can see we do see a slightly upward curve. It's not apparently no relationship. Therefore, I want you to use the correlation coefficient instead of covariance to analyzing the relationship. Okay, so the win and the batting average is a weak positive relationship. So that's the end of the review. Again, the review here is just help you to review the computer skill set to understand for each method what is their scope. And the key here is every time when you are working on the case study, also when you work on case study in the exams, the data you are analyzing, the first step you need to do is first identify the data I asked you to analyzing, if it is quantitative data or category data. So that's the first. Second, and you have to identify is, am I asking you for tabular, graphical, or numeric method? So so you already got all the answer in this file on the D2L. Make sure you follow it to review to understand so which method is for which question. So when you work on the test, you just make sure to look at the data to identify whether the data is categorical, quantitative, whether the questions ask you for tabular display, graphical display, or numeric summarization. So whether the question is looking for the relationship or not. So good luck.